future depends on not copying Lord of the Rings. Sanderson was the speaker at this year's Tolkien lecture on fantasy. Brandon Sanderson is a very prolific, well-known writer. He is probably today's version of, I guess, modern Tolkien, at least according to Polygon and the like. But anyway, Brandon Sanderson is one of the world's, well, I won't argue with the successful part, but most successful and prolific writers, fantasy authors. Since the early aughts, he's published numerous books, novellas, and short stories, among them the Mistborn series and the Stormlight Archives. After Robert Jordan's death in 2007, he stepped in to complete the 14 books of the Wheel of Time. He worked on the last 3, I believe, which is not what this says, but that's okay. Needless to say, Sanderson is an expert, quote unquote, on fantasy and also one of the genre's biggest fans. He is also a bit of a scholar on J.R.R. Tolkien, I guess. Sanderson was a speaker at Tolkien Lecture on Fantasy Fiction, a yearly event hosted at Oxford University meant to foster conversation about genre of fantasy. It's featured in his legacy in an hour-long lecture available on YouTube and his website. Sanderson discusses some of Tolkien's contributions to the genre. He revisits some of the most controversial essays, How Tolkien Ruined Fantasy. Which that's a very, very bold claim right out the gate. Sanderson himself admits that the title was a bit of a clickbait. But the point he raises remains. I would hope that was clickbait. To say that is, like, blasphemous. In the world of fantasy, at least. The author argues that Tolkien was so skilled with his work and cast such a large shadow on the fantasy genre that he held back the genre from innovating and evolving, pushing readers in the 1900s to take a step back from these stories. Many of them talked to me about their experiences when I was first publishing. He said they say they fell slowly out of love with fantasy because it was no longer giving them the wonder it used to. Tolkien was among the first fantasy writers to innovate and embrace the genre fully, taking it seriously enough to create a new language, poem, song, and all manner of texts exploring the mythology and world of the world he created, all with the intent of making Middle-earth feel believable for readers. It's hard work that paid off, creating the immersive feeling that permeates his novels and fantasy lovers love. Or that fantasy lovers love. His contributions were so vast that The Lord of the Rings remains the major epic fantasy text, despite the fact that the books came out 72 years ago. Well, we'll just continue. His writing, Tolkien discussed 3 emotions that fantasy evokes from readers: recovery, escape, and conclusion. Consolation. Core idea is that these 3 is that these stories help us see the world anew, to recover our view of reality and the inherent wonder in it. Says Sanderson, he argues that Tolkien was an innovator, which is one of the reasons why people love this story so much, that writers should take that spirit and embrace their own work. It's merely important that we offer a variety of places to explore from a variety of diverse roots and narrative traditions so that we preserve that emotion of exploration and innovation. Otherwise, our readers will look elsewhere for that. Sanderson concluded his talk by trying to pinpoint what makes fantasy special and why adult readers are still interested in exploring worlds filled with knights, magic, and dragons. While the genre is often accused of being a lesser form, Sanderson argues that fantasy pushes readers to improve and challenge their own imaginations, key traits for humanity. In his eyes, fantasy provides 2 simple goods we could desperately use more of today: empathy and hope. He argues that fantasy is the genre of the impossible, but as it affects can have an impact on people in the real world. Despite coming back up to this, epic fantasy text, despite the fact that the books came out 72 years ago, people are making college courses for Tolkien and all of his writings. He is that prolific. So, it is not a wonder that with all of Tolkien's hard work, this whole paragraph right here summarizing that, it is no wonder that despite it apparently coming out 72 years ago, that and I don't know exactly how I feel about the idea that the people were taking a step back in the 90s. I don't know. Maybe the genre as a whole, perhaps, but I guess that's fair. I think with the popularity of things like D&D and Pathfinder and Critical Role kind of bumping that up and stuff. I guess I can maybe see them taking a step back in the 90s, but there's so many fantasy authors and fantasy books. I don't know if I just fully believe it, but we'll see. I don't know. I think overall this is a decent article. It's made by Polygon though, so take everything with a grain of salt. And I mean, I will agree with the idea down here that it is the genre of the impossible, and I don't know. Features depend on not copying Lord of the Rings. I think that's half and half. I think you don't want to make a 1-to-1. You want to make a give it your own kind of flavor. But I think it's the grandfather of all fantasy for a reason. Um, it all of his story beats and all of his hard work and all of his like he going back to college courses. I think Elvish is a college course, and it's that way for a reason. Um, all of his hard work and dedication throughout multiple years. Tolkien's, I mean, it is very apparent that and it very well deserved on Tolkien's part that he should be the grandfather of all fantasy. That's why fantasy is the way that it is today. The genre of the impossible down here, and then empathy and hope too, in the genre of the impossible. I think that all comes from great granddaddy Tolkien up here. So I think it has some merit of not being a not everything being a carbon copy of it, but at the same time, I think you do want to at least pay attention to what Lord of the Rings is and why it's so popular. I think because again, it's like I guess the Superman of the Justice League or the Captain America of the Avengers. It's the first one, so and it's the best for a reason. So I don't know. That's just my two cents, I guess, on this one topic here.